A very good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's global weather report live from Mark Hogan Weather HQ in Rochester. Hope everybody is well. The time has just gone 4 p.m. It is Sunday, the 26th
A very good
of
afternoon to
January.
everybody.
And
Thanks for
I don't know why,
to-
but I always seem to manage to not dim the volume here, so I do apologise for that. How is everybody doing on this Sunday afternoon? It would be good to find out in the comments section below. And am I getting some sort of feedback? No, it's outside. it's a dog. It's a dog barking outside. Very good afternoon to Paul James and Turbo Stream. They are the first two on today's live chat. What a week it's been of weather. Not just here in the UK and Ireland with Storm Aylwin, but I think that's the right pronunciation. I think I've been pronouncing it in all different ways over the last few days. But we've also seen a remarkable snowstorm in the US Gulf Coast, accumulating snow anywhere from South Texas all the way to coastal North Carolina. It has been an incredible week of weather. We've seen record snow, we've seen record breaking cold temperatures following that snow, and we also have seen the development of Storm Aylwin as it swept across the Atlantic, getting driven by a 250 mile per hour jet, crossed over from the warm side, entering the right entrance region of the jet stream, and then it moved into the left hand side, the cold side of the jet, in the left exit region where we've got air decelerating, forcing the tightening of the circulation, and as a consequence, we've seen the pressure drop like a stone, over 50 millibar drop within 24 hours. The threshold for rapid cyclogenesis is 24 millibars within a 24-hour period. So we've essentially doubled the rate of development and cyclogenesis within this system compared to the standard rapid deepening of a circulation. So we've got Paul James, we've got Turbo Stream, we've got Joyce Vogan, and we've got Paul Farwell all tuning in for today's live stream this afternoon. Hope everybody is safe and well, keeping well. What is your experience of Storm Aylwin? I'd be very curious to find out in the live chat in terms of what your experience was. Was it while where you were? I've seen a couple of comments. Say one person from Enniskillen in Northern Ireland saying it was the worst storm they've ever experienced, which is pretty incredible. I don't know what age this person was, but that is obviously quite a big statement to make. And for many parts of Ireland and Northern Ireland, it probably is the strongest system perhaps that they've experienced overall. But I'll close this off for now, and we will look at obviously the global picture. We're going to look at the US snow and also perhaps the weather coming up in the next week or so as well. Interesting things to look at with regards to the polar vortex and the Julian oscillation as well. We'll touch on that as well in today's live stream. But look at this beautiful visible imagery here showing the rapid deepening of this system here. This is a tweet here by Paul Blight showing some of the inner dynamics, the ingredients that come together to create such an incredible storm. But a very good afternoon to Joyce Vogan. Afternoon, Mark, says Joyce. Turbo Stream, certainly rubbish weather here in Birmingham, blowing a hoolie and rain, says Turbo Stream. We've got Dominic B also tuning in. Screen is frying my brain, laugh out loud. Yes, it certainly has been pretty incredible stuff, hasn't it? Has it been the worst for you, or perhaps the media? Have you had that sense of the media perhaps overcooking it? Have I been overcooking it? I don't think I have. I think it's been a pretty decent overall forecast that we would see the system rapidly deepen like it has done, and it provided a record national wind speed for Ireland at Macehead, County Donegal, or not Donegal, County Galway, that is. County Galway was seen at a wind gust in excess of 114 miles per hour. I believe that at one point there was a sustained wind in the region of about 84 miles per hour, which is incredible. A sustained wind at 84, gusting 114. We're seeing the pressure drop to around 940 in millibars on the west coast of Ireland. Northern Ireland seeing its lowest pressure in over 100 years. Pressure dropping to 948 millibars. For Scotland and for the UK, 941 millibars, I believe, was the lowest at Tyree. That is at least Scotland's lowest pressure for the month of January since 1995, which is interesting. I thought it may surpass the record breaking low sea level pressure of 939 millibars, I think it was, back in a December storm just in the run up to Christmas in 2013. Was seeing a pressure drop to 939 millibars in Stornoway. That was the UK's lowest pressure for any recording station since at least 1900, I believe. I think the UK record is around 925 millibars. That was recorded back in the 1800s in Octortar in Perthshire. So, yeah, let me know in the live chat what your experience of the storm was. We've got Turbo Stream saying we got away with the wind on Friday, which gave way to frost and sunshine on Saturday. Now this wind and rain contrast indeed. Yes, and that was part of the forecast as well, that we would see these big swings back and forward between mild and cold, potentially stormy, which obviously we're seeing. We've also got John Bevan saying, hi Mark, enjoy the content as ever. Wind picking up here in Formby, just north of Liverpool, on the bit sticking out in the north, the Irish Sea. So yeah, 60, 70 mile per hour winds at least in some exposed areas around the coast. We've got another deep area of low pressure into the 940s and millibars that is just off the Irish coast, and that is spreading a lot of unsettled conditions across many areas of the UK. Up here in the far north, it's cloudy, but generally quite quiet. I think the temperature is generally in the kind of 2-3 Celsius range, so it's not been too bad up here. And even back on Friday night into Saturday morning, when we obviously had the 90 to 100 mile per hour winds funneling through the central belt, the winds up here did pick up late kind of Friday evening, but nothing really terribly to write home about, quite honestly. And I'm sure there's folks up here that have probably thought this has been blown out of proportion. We obviously know that it did live up to the billing across parts of the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Central Scotland, even parts of Northern England. We've seen lorries blown over on the M6, the M1. I think there was a complete shutdown of the A66, the Trans-Pennine route linking Penrith with Scotch Corner. That was completely shut down to all traffic for a period of time, I think, during Friday, which was quite interesting. And yeah, plenty of people recording damage of some sort, whether it be a fence in the back garden blown down or trees blown down. some houses were kind of almost destroyed because of trees blown down on top of their house. So obviously our thoughts are with those who have been severely affected by Storm Éowyn. I've actually written it down here because I feel like every time I was doing a report, as I was about to say the name, I was actually getting confused and thinking, is that the right pronunciation of this name? But I think I've got it in today's stream, hopefully okay. So it's a bit quiet on the live chat. It would be good to hear from you. We've got 23 concurrent viewers at the moment here. Folks are probably out busy, maybe doing tidying up, etc., etc. But yeah, it would be good to see what your experience was over the last few days. Is there anybody tuning in perhaps from the southern United States? We've seen a remarkable winter storm affecting coastal Texas all the way through Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and then up the Carolina coast as well. Seeing accumulating snow of multiple inches all the way down to where the beach meets the wave breaks on the Gulf of Mexico. Really, really is an extreme event to see significant snow falling that far south. It's unusual to get the combination of dry polar air all the way to the coast and then the development of an area of low pressure. Sometimes these lows develop, but perhaps are a little bit to the north of the coastal strip. So therefore, you get that kind of rain, sleet, snow mix, maybe freezing rain. You sometimes get snow in the air along the beaches, but any accumulation usually very minimal, and it's usually inland. But this case was pretty unique actually in living memory. We basically seen accumulating snow, that dry powdery snow lying on the beaches where it met the Gulf of Mexico, and then inland we've seen Houston's biggest snowfall in over 60 years. We've seen the record blown away in the New Orleans area of Louisiana, where we had anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow falling within the greater metropolitan area of New Orleans, where it really was just incredible to see that. And then what was even more incredible was the fact that for 2 or 3 days afterwards, the snow was still on the ground, which literally just never happens. We've also got Lisa Pattenden tuning in. We've got Katrine. We've got who else have we got? I thought I seen another name popping up there, but I could be wrong. No, I think it was. Thanks very much, Lisa, for tuning in. I hope you're well and you're keeping well, not too busy with work, etc. But yes, let me know in the live chat how things are. Seen snow twice this winter, which is twice more than last year, says Paul. Yeah, it's not been the worst winter, if I'm being honest. I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Looks as if January is going to end up turning out to be slightly colder than average, which is interesting. In the United States, one of the coldest Januaries in many years over there. And, we've got also Seafood and Eat It tuning in. Good afternoon to yourself. It's nice to see you. We've got Katrine saying that today in Thurk, it has been very wet and breezy. My poor juniper tree has fallen and needs propping up. That is a shame, Katrine. I hope you can get that sorted out as soon as possible. We've got City Andy also tuning in. Good afternoon to Andy. I hope you're well as well, and you have survived Storm Eowyn. Yeah, it certainly has been remarkable stuff. So let me see here a couple of interesting things. So it looks as if Dromalbyn in South Lanarkshire took the prize for the strongest wind gust away from mountains anyway of 100 miles per hour. That is just to the south of the Central Belt in the foothills of the southern uplands. So very impressive gust here. We've seen winds in excess of 85 miles per hour in the greater Glasgow area, both Ibrox Stadium and Celtic Park, both ends of the centre of Glasgow. So Ibrox being to the west, Celtic Park being to the east of the centre. Both sustained structural damage due to the strong winds associated with Eowyn, which is quite interesting. I did happen to say to my wife Lindsay a couple of days before this storm, I says it would not surprise me if we've seen cancellations, postponements of football matches during the course of Saturday, possibly Sunday, due to storm damage. And certainly the Celtic Dundee game was called off because of stormy conditions and the damage caused to the stadium structure. So yeah, it certainly has been pretty impressive stuff. Many of thousands of trees also have been blown down due to this system also. So I showed you the visible satellite imagery here. Let's have a very quick scan of some of the details that Paul Blight says with regards to the intricacies of meteorology all coming together. What is interesting about this system was it deepened rapidly, but it was also still within its deepening phase as it moved into Ireland. At least it was very slowly starting to weaken within the core anyway as it moved up the west side of Scotland. The centre of the low essentially tracked just west of the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and then it went over Tiree with a pressure around 941 millibars here. So it was around 940 millibars on the west coast of Ireland. It was 941 millibars at Tiree. Then as the centre then tracked up the western side of Scotland, the winds then started to veer in different directions. In the central belt for Scotland, it's always worst when they become westerly. You get a 90, 80, 90, locally 100 mile per hour gale blowing through the central belt. It acts like a funnel between the Campsie and Oakhill Hills to the north. You've got the southern uplands to the south. What happens is that wind is then forced to tighten as it goes through the gap, through the central lowlands, and you see acceleration of wind. It's like a kind of wind tunnel, so to speak. It's like a giant wind tunnel the central belt acts like, and we've seen the strongest winds here. Southwesterly winds through Dumfries and Galloway. We've seen 80, 90 mile per hour winds, lots of damage. That red warning was also extended further east towards the Gretna area. This was the strongest winds seen in Northern Ireland at Killowen in County Down, 92 miles per hour. That is the strongest wind gust seen in Northern Ireland since the Great Boxing Day storm of 1998, which is quite interesting as well. So let me just see here. Turbo Stream's in, but I'm 55, so it's milder than my childhood winters of the 70s and 80s. I'm assuming that is to another one. So I feel this winter since December has been very cold compared to previous winters, bar a short warm up during Christmas Day. Or am I missing? Imagine it. No, you're probably not. Turbo Stream. In fairness, what we've seen is, especially across England and Wales, it stayed relatively chilly after the north started to warm up. Remember, we've seen the core of cold, minus 18.9 at Altnahara. We've seen double figures below freezing all the way into central England, for example. But then we've seen the warm up. That area of high pressure that initially gave the snow, then the cold, then it moved southwards into the southeast of England and particularly the near continent. That then allowed winds to come up from the southwest. It really caused a dramatic warm up, especially in Altnahara, where we went from minus 18.9 Saturday morning to a high of 14 Celsius. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday the following week. So within a 3 or 4 day time frame, we had a temperature rise over 30 Celsius. And according to Dan Harris of the Met Office, that is potentially the biggest rise in temperature for the UK on record, according to him. A little bit of back and forth interaction with Dan. I said, I wonder how this stacks up with regards to history when you look at the rise in temperature. But that rise was only limited to western portions of the UK, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. England largely remained quite calm under that area of high pressure, albeit it wasn't a cold high, but all the cold air that developed then become trapped underneath that high, and essentially you had chilly days and cold nights with frost, fog, etc., etc. So the cold has lingered, and if you look at the January anomaly, the coldest anomalies are actually down across England as opposed to northern Scotland. For example, we're actually close to average across the far north of Scotland when you factor in the whole of January so far. So it's so Seafood and Eat It says, I see there was a tornado in I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Trevornick caravan park from the storm. Yeah, is that, am I right in saying, Seafood and Eat It, that was down in the southwest? Was that not in Devon or Cornwall? I think that that occurred. I could be mistaken. My head's been slightly in overdrive with all these stats and information that I've been trying to deliver. We obviously had a late live stream on Tuesday past looking at the extreme snowfall across the southern United States. Then I was doing multiple updates on Storm Aowen. So it has been a really busy time here on the channel. Massive support. I really greatly appreciate everybody's kind support, the views, the subscribing, the comments. I've not had a chance really to look through the comments in recent times, unfortunately, just because I've been swamped between work and covering all the weather that's been taking place in the last week or so. It's been an incredible week of weather for sure. But as Lisa says, and thanks for sharing this, hit that like button. Let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. It is important. The good thing is it's absolutely free. In a time where everybody is struggling financially to pay the bills, the good news is that Mark Hogan Weather here on YouTube is completely free. It doesn't cost you a single penny. So the hard work that I'm putting in is my gift to you, the viewer and the subscriber. So please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so and you're enjoying what you're seeing here. Yeah, let me see here if we can crack on. So a little quick piece of information here by Paul Blight. Classic bullseye. So this is describing the infrared imagery here that we're looking at with regards to when Storm Eowyn was in its peak in terms of development and strengthening. We've seen the pressure drop over 50 millibars, like I said, within 24 hours. It isn't a record breaker, and it is important to always maintain some perspective as well. There is elements of this that hasn't surpassed all the records out there. You know, we've seen stronger systems before, especially across mainland UK, as opposed to Ireland. It probably is one of the strongest in a lifetime for folks there. But he says that the classic bullseye, very dark purple center, beginning to appear in Irma's imagery, showing intense vorticity in the center of Storm Eowyn. The mass ascent on the forward side, creating latent heat release, lowering the tropopause. We actually had the stratosphere within the center of this system drop out of the stratosphere and into the troposphere. Basically, it's a very, very intricate evolution of meteorology. So it's actually quite hard to explain, and a lot of it, even for myself, I struggle to understand it all. But you get the what you call, I think it's stratospheric folding, where you've got a piece of the stratosphere that drops into the troposphere because of the rapid ascent of the air as the system has a tremendous amount of ascent within the center. It creates a lack of clouds within the center as the air is rushing up to fill the gap. You've got that upper level divergence, forcing the air to then get lifted up, bounces against the tropopause, which is the separation between the troposphere and the stratosphere, forces the air to then get pushed away. It spreads out in a divergent fashion, and then it forces at the surface the air to then get rushed in underneath, and then it drives that upward motion. As the air ascends vertically at speed, you then see the pressure dropping as a consequence of that. I hope it makes sense to you, but this is what I live and breathe. The how meteorology comes together to create such an incredible system and such destructive winds. It really is marvelous to see this. As much as it's devastating, people get killed, you get severe damage, etc., etc. Nobody wants to see that. But in terms of seeing all this incredible ingredients all just merging together to create such an incredible system, it really is marvelous to see. And that is why I love weather and I love meteorology. We've also got Simon tuning as well. Good afternoon to Simon. Hi, Mark. Thought I'd ask, but apparently there was something somebody said this afternoon that there go a potential tornado in the southeast this evening. Interesting stuff, actually, Simon. I'm not entirely sure, my friend, but it wouldn't be surprising, given that the amount of spin within the atmosphere, wouldn't be surprising that if we see some of these banding features circulating around this area of low pressure, that we see some spin ups of either funnel clouds or small tornadoes. That is quite possible, actually, given the overall turbulent atmosphere that we have at the moment. And as said, as forecasted, we have more systems following the storm Eowyn. We've obviously got that occurring today. Another sub 950 millibar low spinning just off the Irish coast. Thankfully, the wind field isn't as intense as Storm Eowyn. That is obviously very, very good news indeed. But we are going to see more areas of low pressure piling in off that very powerful jet stream that has been crossing the Atlantic Ocean. A massive thank you to Braemar, Ballater, D-Side and Donside Weather for a very kind donation. Thank you very much, my friend. I hope you are well and staying safe. That is a very, very kind gesture and is greatly appreciated indeed. So, let me see what else I can show here. A couple of interesting pieces of information by our very good friend Shryan Bruin. He is based in Dublin, Ireland. Always delivers some fascinating statistics and weather information as well. Always I greatly appreciate Shryan's contribution to the weather community. But our folks at the NOAA Hurricane Hunters was actually over within the Ireland region. They flew through Storm Eowyn. I believe they had to flee to to safety at one point due to severe turbulence. But the folks, the hurricane hunters, flew the WP-3D Orion, known as Kermit, into the system over recent days. I think it was the Thursday, Friday time frame. They flew through it as it was rapidly deepening, trying to take some important measurements within the system itself. Obviously, they fly through hurricanes, through drop zones, through the column of the atmosphere, taking in humidity, dew point, air pressure, wind speed, and different wind speeds with the height, for example, that is known as shear. And this is an interesting video here showing from the NOAA the Aircraft Operations Center that they did fly into Storm Aowen back Thursday or Friday. Their primary objectives in these missions are to improve our knowledge of the physics at the air-sea interface, so the interaction between ocean and atmosphere, explore new remote sensing instrument capabilities, collaborate and validate ocean surface remote sensing products and techniques in the storm environment. So that is the reasoning behind flying into such storms. It's life saving. It's also providing information that gets fed directly into the computer models and then creates a more accurate forecast for example, the National Hurricane Center during the hurricane season, and when you've got tropical systems roaming, developing, intensifying, impacting land. These are all vital, things that are taking place in order to get the most accurate information to the appropriate places. So, in other words, the National Hurricane Center, and then they can then feed that out to the government and create the warnings and the better accurate information that people so desperately need. I probably waffled that one, but I hope you got the general idea of what I was meaning. Like I say, there's so much information that is getting digested. It's very, very important to try and deliver as accurate and as unbiased and as unhyped information here on this channel. That is my goal. That is my strive, to provide you with the information possible. Interesting tweet here by Dan Harris at the Met Office, by the way, saying, and follow Dan. If you're on Twitter and you're interested, follow Dan Harris because he always delivers very interesting information, statistics, etc. But Dan says that January 2025 looks on course to be a colder than average month for the UK, and unless it warms up significantly in the next week, which it doesn't look like, it's going to fall in the bottom 20% of climate. So that's quite interesting, actually. Sometimes I struggle to understand what that actually means, but it's fallen within the bottom 20%. So it's in, I suppose you could say, in relatively rare territory in terms of recent times, because obviously we've had a lot of milder winters in the last decade or so. So it's interesting to see that this month is going to pan out colder than average, and that's part of the forecast. I'm actually delighted about that because it looks as if February's a wee bit questionable, but I said a slightly warmer than average December, slightly colder than average January. So the Marfogan weather winter forecast appears to be on track actually at the moment, which I'm quite pleased about. February is going to be an interesting one. There's a part of me that thinks mild start, colder second half. Stay tuned because I'm going to deliver the February 2025 outlook this upcoming week. So, and it will be obviously the final monthly outlook of meteorological winter for the UK and Ireland. So, interesting enough, another tweet here. This is a little bit of perspective as well with regards to Aowen. Today is the 35th anniversary. So, this was yesterday. It was the 35th anniversary of the Burns Day storm. Do you remember that? Which brought more widespread destructive winds to England and Wales than the Great Storm of 1987. I'm sure there's folk out there that didn't realise that. So basically, the Burns Day storm 35 years ago yesterday delivered more widespread destructive winds to England and Wales than the Great Storm of 1987. Remember, the 87 storm was more further south focused. Further north over the UK, it literally was a non-event. So here's comparison of these storms from yesterday and a comparison to Storm Aowen. So it's a little bit hard to see, but this was the Aylwin winds. I think, is that right? Maximum gusts. And then we had the 1990 Burnsday storm. We had strong winds in excess of 80 miles per hour, 90 miles per hour in the southwest, 85 in the southeast. Then the Great Storm of 1987, a largely focused, if you notice here, we had some 70 plus mile per hour winds in the southwest, 78 to the west on the west south side of the English Channel. Then we had 90 and 100 mile per hour winds, generally from kind of Portsmouth east towards Kent, then up into East Anglia as well. So, yeah, Burnsday Storm 35 years ago yesterday. Some interesting other pieces of information with regards to the comparisons to the history. This is an interesting one from Bad Weather Station. So I want to try and avoid debate with regards to climate change, but people saying the storm Aylwin was unprecedented and a sign of climate change is complete nonsense, says Bad Weather Station. So again, I'm just trying to look at all angles and some interesting comparisons. Aylwin's rapid cyclogenesis of 52 millibars in 24 hours was notable, but not near as rapid as some storms. For example, the Brer storm of January 93, some sources say that it deepened as rapidly as 78 millibars inside 24 hours. Remember, for it to be rapid cyclogenesis, it has to hit a criteria of 24 millibar drop within a 24-hour period. The ERA5 chart suggested it was 70 millibars, but either way faster than Aylwin, and with a lowest pressure of around 915 millibars. 915, that is remarkable. That's a category 5 easily, and around 34 millibars deeper. So as much as yesterday's storm or Friday's storm was impressive, and for some areas locally it was probably the worst storm they've seen. Sorry, I bite into my mouth every so often. In case you're thinking I'm having a fit, I do apologise. Aylwin brought a maximum 10 hourly minimum mean gust wind, so a minimum of 10 minutes, mean wind speeds of 135 kilometers an hour, and a gust of 183 at Mace Head. So they actually did see a gust of 184, which beat a record, an all-time Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland record of 184, and that was set back in 1945 at Mace Head. The station, right on a fully exposed rocky coast and only in operation since 2003, the mean wind and the gust both broke the previous Irish record by 4 and 1 kilometers per hour, respectively, set at Foynes, an absolute station of 96 kilometers southeast of Mace Head. So that's the difference between the two record wind gusts in the Republic of Ireland. But the difference is Mace Head has only been in operation since 2003, which is obviously quite recent. So the Foynes record was blown away by 1 kilometer per hour anyway. We don't have any readings from the Mace area in 1945, so we'll never know if it received an even higher gust than Foynes on that day. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I would bet my money on it. So Mace Head didn't exist back in 1945, and it likely recorded a stronger wind on the coast there compared to this location here. So some little interesting pieces of information, I think, with regards to that. And like I say, Killowen, County Down, strongest wind gust since Boxing Day 1998. For Northern Ireland, we've seen 100 mile per hour. That was a record for Drumalbin, that site in South Lanarkshire. We also seen, I think, a gust of at least 124 miles per hour at Kernwell up in the East Highland region of Scotland. So that was probably the strongest wind gust, I think. So, yeah, let me just see here. We've also got Sync Splint tune in. Very good afternoon to Sync. So, with the exceptions of Lindsay, who is out at work, we've got a full team of moderators. A massive thank you to Sync Splint, Lisa, and the Paul James for tuning in and also helping with moderation this afternoon. A massive thank you to everybody for tuning in as well. So let's crack on. Let's have a quick look at the snowstorm that affected the south of the United States. It was a record breaker. It blew away records that stood for over 100 years. Florida, Milton and Jay in the Florida Panhandle recorded 10 inches of snow. And also the temperature in Jay the following morning, once the system departed, clear skies, light winds over that 10-inch snowpack allowed the temperature to drop to at least 7 Fahrenheit, which is around about minus 14 Celsius. Would you believe having 10 inches of snow and a temperature of minus 14 in northwest Florida? I'm sure there's a lot of people that wouldn't believe that. The record, by the way, for Florida is minus 2 Fahrenheit. So it has been cold in the past up in that northwestern corner. But Braemar, Ballater, D-side and Donside weather says I recorded a gust of 102 miles per hour at the Lek, obviously a high location, exposed, with a sustained wind over 90 miles per hour. So that is pretty incredible stuff when you think about that. We've got Richard Trott also tuning in. A very good afternoon to Richard. Hope you are well, my friend, and keeping well, not working too hard, I hope. So, yeah, let me see here. With regards to the snow in the southeast, that was our first big weather story of the week just gone. And then obviously the very same energy associated with this snowstorm became Storm Aowen as well. So it developed, on the tail of an Arctic front over the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. It then crossed the south, delivering the record-breaking snow, and then it moved across the Atlantic, getting picked up by a 250 plus mile per hour jet stream. We've seen aircraft flying at over 800 miles an hour, shaving an hour and a half off flights between the United States and Europe. Yes, then it became Storm Aowen and impacted the west of Europe. So this was snow amounts. Alabama picked up as much as 11 inches of snow in Babby, southeast Alabama. Florida 8.8, but it was actually 10 inches, I believe it was recorded in Milton, near just north of Pensacola. But Milton and Jay, I believe, are the two locations that recorded as much as 10 inches of snow. This broke the previous record for Florida. I think it was 1957, if I'm right in saying, and the record was 4 inches? I think it was. So that record was blown away, over double the amount with this system during the course of the week. Georgia had as much as 7 inches in southwestern Georgia. Blakely and Leesburg picking up the 7 inches. Louisiana, 11.5 inches, and that was just, I believe, either north or west of the New Orleans metro. We had 9 inches in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. North Carolina, 2 inches in Hampstead. South Carolina seen 3 inches near Conway. We had snow even to the beaches of Charleston, South Carolina as well, which is quite interesting. And then there was 6 inches near Pine Island, near Beaumont, Texas, which is in the southeast corner of the state. This is a nice little graphic showing that snow here, accumulating snow well to the west of the Houston area, probably near San Antonio, down towards Corpus Christi, all the way over 1,500 mile stretch of accumulating snow from this January 20th through 22nd event. So let me see here if there's anything else that I can show. Southern Louisiana picking up 8 to 10 inches of snow in a once-in-a-generation event. And this was a once-in-a-generation event, by the way. This is a once-in-a-lifetime. I'm writing an article that will get released tomorrow for weather, hopefully in the next day or so, looking back at the historic snow. But New Orleans picked up 8 inches officially at the airport, making it the heaviest snowfall there in modern-day record since 1948. And the city's biggest total in over 100 years. By nightfall, skiers and skiing and snowball fights, I would imagine, had been held in Bourbon Street. We've seen ice skating, ice hockey on Canal Street. Incredible. If you happen to know the city of New Orleans, I know Lisa probably does, and maybe a few other folks as well. But I seen the ice skating in Canal Street, incredible stuff. I was I had the fortune of visiting New Orleans way back. I think it was in 2003, I think it was, or 2002. I can't remember. No, 2000 and I think it was 2003. It was anyway. It doesn't really matter. But so ice skating, skiing, etc. in the streets of New Orleans really never seen in modern day. And let me just see here. We also seen blizzard conditions, and the first blizzard warning that was issued so far south ever recorded in western Louisiana, generally between Lake Charles and the New Orleans area, where we've seen 30, 35 mile per hour winds blowing and drifting that snow, causing whiteout conditions. Mobile in Alabama, southern Alabama to be exact, recording 7.5 inches. Officially, it was the most the Gulf Coast city has seen for any snow event on record dating back to the late 1800s, which is quite interesting. Biloxi, also I visited Biloxi. I stayed in the Beau Rivage Hotel back then. That was when we done a day trip to New Orleans. But Biloxi, home of the hurricane hunters, saw heavy snowfall on Tuesday afternoon. The city picked up at least 5 inches of snow, but other parts of southern Mississippi picked up as much as 9 inches. The snow-coated streets, signs, and even the beach visibility dropped at times as low as a quarter mile. And then in Florida, this is probably the most incredible, as well as New Orleans. This really here blew me away. Florida has likely broken a state snowfall record. Well, it has. Milton, as well as Jay, the state's previous record holder. So Milton recorded the most snow back in, was it 1954? So that's when it was, 1954. And the same place recorded a new record, beating its old record back in 54. The old record was 4 inches, and that was March 6th, 1954. Snowplows were out on Tuesday night, clearing parts of Interstate 10 in Florida. And Interstate 10, major artery linking the Gulf Coast communities and cities, that was essentially shut down during this event. So let me just see here. And like I said, bitterly cold temperatures. Temperatures around 1 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded between, in Lafayette, I believe it was, which is around minus 17 Celsius. So incredible cold that followed that incredible snowstorm down in the deep south. So moving on then. Interesting tweet here by Tom Nizzle, based at the Weather Channel in Atlanta, Georgia. Says this is a graphic showing the season snowfall so far, and it's amazing to see the coverage of snow. Not only just the coverage, but seeing this swath of snow all the way along the U.S. Gulf Coast, from Corpus all the way to northwestern Florida. Seeing snow all the way to the shores is pretty amazing stuff, actually. And then you've got a little slot of no snow far northern Louisiana through central Mississippi and into west central Alabama. You can see there's an area that hasn't seen snow. So systems to the north and then that system to the south missing out. Even an area there north of Houston has picked up no snow. But interesting graphic nonetheless by Tom Nizzle. So let me have another little scan here. Mild Sunday for sure across the continent of Europe. This is the temperature anomaly for today. And you can see generally the UK and Ireland really sticks out in a sea of mild. We've got a below average across the British Isles and across Ireland. So looking at the month to date, and you can see here that we are talking below average across the UK and Ireland. You can see here specifically England has seen a particularly noteworthy colder than average January. Actually, it'll be interesting to see how this stacks up. Obviously, Dan Harris of the Met Office saying that this falls within the lower 20% of climatology, but it'll be interesting to see the stats on England in terms of colder than average. But you can see the majority of Europe for the month of January is running warmer than average. Crossing over the pond to the United States, and again, it'll be interesting to see how this stacks up with history. But it looks as if it has turned out to be a particularly colder than average January for the United States. Warmer than average across most of Canada. Look at this here across northern Quebec into Labrador, as well as that northwestern Canada, Northwest Territories, Yukon, Alaska. We're seeing a very mild January, and that is often the case, by the way, when you've got a lot of blocking and mild conditions up across the north of the continent, you tend to have colder conditions underneath, and that is certainly the case. This will probably be a top 5 coldest January in perhaps the last 50 years or so for the eastern United States. Again, I don't know the stats yet, so I don't want to make any kind of bold statements when I don't know the facts, but this is certainly turning out to be an impressively cold January. We've got some clipper systems moving in from Canada. We're seeing lake effect snow across the Great Lakes. We've seen Lake Erie, albeit it's the shallowest of the Great Lakes. We've seen the ice change from 27% coverage of ice on the surface of Lake Erie to as much as 87% in the space of a week. So Arctic air, obviously it causes the cooling, then it starts to form ice, and the rapid development of ice on the surface of Lake Erie. So going from 24 or 27% to nearly 90% in the space of a week. That's quite impressive, actually, when you think about that as well. But you can see here, like I say, below average across the majority, away from California and Nevada, where we've still got major issues with wildfires, the Santa Ana winds. When you've got that area of high pressure that builds over the Great Basin, area of low pressure develops off the southwest coast, that develops a northeasterly flow. Winds blow around, if not over, the San Gabriel and San Bernardino mountains, follows the gaps through the canyons. Winds accelerate, they dry out as they blow towards the coast, causing the rapid spread of wildfire in this part of the world as well. Winds getting gusty here at 49.6 miles per hour from Richard. The next storm is on its way. Let me just see here, because I don't want to miss out on comments as well. Lisa said, yeah, Pensacola was a wild one. I was stationed there for a short time and it never gets colder. Yeah, it certainly was, Lisa. Could you imagine being stationed there when, with that event during the course of the week? It really would have been an incredible snowball fight in New Orleans on their live webcam. Yeah, I was watching that. It was quite comical. Did you happen to see the folk slipping? Obviously, it's not funny because you can break stuff and you can really severely injure yourself, but there was quite a few folk that you could see falling, and it was quite comical. It just looked like a complete sheet of ice. That's the scary thing, because they don't treat and they don't plow down there because there isn't the equipment. Basically, the snow fell, then it slightly melted, then it froze solidly during the night, and it just became one solid sheet of ice. So it must have been pretty crazy stuff, actually, for the folks down here. So Lisa saying, my son is so happy with colder temps in Arizona, and I'm sure he's making the most of the cold now, Lisa, because we know the temperature is only going to go one way as we start to climb out of winter. Hazel Kitchen, tune in. Good afternoon to Hazel from Hull. I hope you're well and staying warm, Hazel. Hi everyone, sorry I'm late. Hoping my cure will be here for 7:35 p.m. Yeah, let's hope so, Hazel. So let me just see here what else. I've not really made my way there, but heard a lot of it. That's in reply to Lisa. Lovely part of the world, North Yorkshire. Lisa Whitby, just 25 miles away. And I believe my mum and dad, by the way, that I think are watching, also has been in that part of Yorkshire as well, Richard. I've been a few times, I must admit, especially with work. But given now that I'm only travelling back and forth each night between Glasgow and Inverness, I don't get down into England that often now, which is a little bit of a pity. What have we got to look forward to this week, says Lisa. Well, let's have a look and see. Let me finish off. It is now 10 to 5, so time is ticking. Let's have a quick look at the temperature anomalies globally, and then we'll have a look and see what is happening this upcoming work week. Little hints of a Scandi block developing, which is interesting. There's also some interesting disruptions with the polar vortex as well. If I have time, we'll look at that. If we don't, I'll definitely be discussing this more and more in the upcoming European Outlook. So stay tuned and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. So this is how temperatures are looking globally. The anomaly through Sunday the 26th of January. The United States really stands out in a relative sea of mild across the majority of the northern hemisphere. Australia warmer than average. Most of South America is warmer than average. There's a bit of a mix across the African continent. It looks as if Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Yemen, I think it is. It looks as if it's colder than average for the month of January. It looks as if there's a bit of a split over Iran, colder than average southeast, warmer than average north. Europe is warmer than average away from the UK and Ireland. And look at Russia, incredibly mild across the majority of Russia. That includes Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Eastern China, with a colder than average Western China. Canada, this could be one of the warmer Januaries on record versus one of the colder Januaries for some time across the United States. The contrast between Canada and the United States is quite stark, if you notice. So, anyway, let's crack on. I'm going to try and rattle on. By the way, did you notice this? This is the sea temperature anomalies for the Gulf of Mexico and off the East Coast. With Arctic air getting driven off the continent out over the open waters, we have seen an incredible drop in the CSSTs around the coastal region of North America, which I thought that's pretty cool. I wanted to show you that as well. -5, so 5 below normal in the coastal plain here around anywhere from Texas all the way around Florida and up the East Coast, thanks to polar air getting blown off the continent. David Vogan also tuned in. Good afternoon to David. Hi, Mark. I've just managed to get into your live stream now. Had a few things to do. Better late than never, I guess. Well, yeah. If you can tune in at any point in time, you can obviously watch it back at your leisure if you wish. But it's also good. It's always good to see both yourself and Mum tune in to the live stream. So anyway, let's crack on. What are we going to expect this upcoming week? That is a question that Lisa directed to me. We'll look at the temperature anomalies of the CFSV2 real quick and see what the compared to average anyway, how it's looking. So this is off the CFSV2. Low pressure largely dominating the upcoming 7 days. So this takes us to the end of the month and beginning of February. And with still Atlantic weather moving in, you would expect it to be wetter than average. Yes, wetter than average according to the CFSV2. So it's a low pressure, wetter than average, and what about the temperature anomalies? Real quick, you can see here that interestingly enough, it's actually showing warmer than average for the UK and Ireland here with the low pressure and weather dominated upcoming 7 days. Let's have a look at the GFS ensemble. And you can see here it is updating at the moment, but this is the upcoming 5 days. Cold than average across Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. Slightly warmer than average across the much of England, especially down towards London in the southeast. Look at Europe. Again, warmer than average overall. Let's have a look and see what the models are showing here in terms of the overall outlook, the overview anyway. We've got an area of low pressure, a large circulation, but thankfully the wind field is not as intense as the previous system. Let's zoom out and have a look at the more broader picture, the North Atlantic and Europe. So it's still got an active jet coming off the Atlantic, areas of low pressure that is coming against an area of high pressure over the continent. So this system is bundling a little bit. So we're seeing the pressure dropping within the centre of that circulation for a time west of UK and Ireland. By the way, there's a buoy M6 that's in the Rockall Trough out to the west of Ireland by about 250 miles or so. I believe there was wave heights associated with Storm Eowyn in excess of 60 feet. I wanted to also drop that little fact in there as well. That was quite an interesting one. So over 60-foot waves recorded off the Ireland coast during Storm Eowyn as it rapidly deepened and the surface winds were well in excess of 100 miles an hour, especially offshore. But anyway, look at this here. Unsettled conditions to start the upcoming work week. You can see here that we've got generally a bit of a washing machine effect, a lot of moisture getting circulated around this centre of low pressure. It becomes a little, kind of two different centres, one off the northeast of Scotland, the other between Ireland and Wales through the Irish Sea. In underneath that system, not an awful lot going on at the moment. Chilly as well. We're going to see a mix of rain at low levels, snow over moderate to high ground. we could see snow amounts building up. By the way, David, I wanted to ask how much snow. You said you had snow yesterday in Kirkintilloch. I'd be curious to know how much snow was it accumulating. Was it lying? Did it stay around for long? I know it was a chilly old weekend for many areas. Northern Ireland, I think, received a good covering of snow as well. But I'd be curious to find out how much snow that you got in Kirkintilloch during the course of yesterday. Dad's got a cold, so I hope you're feeling better in the coming days to come. I know he's been feeling a little bit under the weather, maybe a little bit run down, I don't know. But hope you're managing to get some rest. You're staying warm in the house, both of you anyway. So yeah, anyway, GFS. You can see this area of low pressure spinning away over the UK and Ireland, creating this more unsettled conditions. Some places on the outer periphery of this circulation is receiving 60, 70 mile an hour winds. Those winds are transferring all the way down to northwestern Iberia, the French coast along Biscay. We're seeing some gale force winds blowing in here on the southern side of that low. Then you can see another feature here out over the North Atlantic, riding the jet stream. That's going to then push in, according to the GFS, it affects the south of Ireland, southwestern England, staying largely chilly but calmer across central and northern areas of the UK as well as Ireland during the course of midweek. Then we've got a little area of high pressure that builds in. Then we've got another system that rides the top of an area of high pressure that is building. According to the GFS anyway, we've got higher pressure developing, and it looks as if more west and north areas are going to be affected by any kind of frontal systems here. But generally speaking, we've got a positive Arctic oscillation, positive North Atlantic oscillation. The MJO is in largely warm phases at the moment. But I wanted to end by showing you this here. This is the latest off the ECMWF. In terms of the Mann-Julian oscillation, so phases 2 and 3, I know Lisa said to you that would try and provide a video explaining a little bit more about these various phases of the MJO, etc. I've just been really struggling to find time, but I will try and get to that. But generally, the phases of 2 and 3 tend to be more Atlantic driven, more unsettled with storminess, especially phase 3. We're in phase 3 at the moment. The last time the MJO rotated through phase 3 was seen in named storm. This has been about the third rotation over the last 2 or 3 months of the MJO, and every time we've seen a named storm in the UK, Ireland, or Western Europe. It's expected to drift into phases 4 and 5 perhaps, but it's heading into an inactive null phase. So phases 3 tend to be more unsettled and Atlantic driven. Phases 4 and 5 tend to be mild. You've got higher pressure over the continent, lower pressure over the Atlantic and Greenland, positive AO, NAO. Then as you go into phase 6, you tend to have quite a lot of blockiness, high pressure over the UK, Ireland, Western Europe. Once the MJO goes into phases 7 and 8, which is Central and West Pacific, they tend to be more, it creates a more amplified jet stream over the northern hemisphere. You tend to have more high latitude blocking, so a negative AO, a negative NAO when you've got phases 7 and 8, especially if it's more amplified. The more amplified, the more upward motion you get within this region, Western and Central Pacific, and the more amplification or the more intensity of upward motion, thunderstorms and rainfall, the more influential it tends to be on the pattern within the mid to high latitudes. So that's a very, very brief explanation. Very brief, I get that. 2 and 3 tend to be more Atlantic driven and stormy. Phases 4 and 5, mild. Phases 6, blocky, high pressure. And phases 7 and 8 tend to be your cold phases. That's what you want to see if you want to see cold weather across the northern hemisphere in particular. So let me just see here. Did David answer my question? I don't know. Let me see. If there's been an answer, I don't know. Lisa says, hi all. If you haven't already hit the like button, yeah, please do hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. We've been talking for about an hour, so I want to crack on. Polar vortex, an interesting one. The mean zonal winds appear to be on a slight decrease. If you look at this graphic here, this is the mean zonal wind. Above the thin red line is the climatological record. So we're in record strong mean zonal winds. That means that we've got a strong polar vortex at the moment. Tends to promote milder conditions in our latitude, both in North America and Europe. We're going to see that, by the way. We're going to see a moderation to something milder. Ocean air is going to dominate the pattern, both in the Pacific, flooding North America, and the Atlantic flooding the European continent. When you've got that strong PV, positive AO, positive NAO, you've got generally mild conditions. But you notice the thick red line, which is the ensemble mean, the ECMWF mean. You've got a deceleration or a weakening of the mean zone of winds during the month of February, which is interesting. And then I want to draw your attention to this graphic here. This is the anomaly at 10 millibars, so the upper levels of the stratosphere. You can see that we've got a strong warming showing up from Asia right the way across into North America. We've got a displacement of the polar vortex, and this is around Tuesday the 11th of February. So if we look at the actual temperature and heights at 10 millibars, look at that strong warming showing up. The modelling has been a wee bit persistent in showing this, and I always ask the question, what causes that? There must be a reason. There must be some forcing underneath that create this friction and warming within the 10 millibar level and in the stratosphere. And if you notice here, this is off the GFS, and I'll end with this, and we'll talk more about this in the European outlook. We'll end with this, right? I want to show you this here. This is the 500 millibar anomaly through the next week or so here, and I want to show you the buildup of pressure. So this is compared to average sea level pressure, or no, this is the geopotential height. So this is up at the 500 millibars, or 18,000 feet above our heads. Got that deep trough. That's obviously the strong jet and low pressure associated with that, affecting western portions of Europe. Strong high pressure over the east. Play it through this loop, right? You can see these areas of low pressure, one starting to get pushed down to the southwest of Europe. But watch what happens as we move towards the early portions of February. And this may be the reason why we're seeing a weakening in the polar vortex, by the way. Look at this strong high developing. This is the anomaly at 18,000 feet above our heads. We're seeing this very strong ridge developing over northern Scandinavia. And that may be creating that friction and influence from troposphere up into the stratosphere, creating that warming that I just showed you. But it'll be interesting. This is just the GFS operational, so we have to take this with a pinch of salt, right? But this could be the reasons causing that friction within the stratosphere. But also, it may start to create a high over this region that then sends winds blowing underneath it, easterly, cold air towards the UK and Ireland. And we'll finally look at this here. This is the 850 temperatures here, 5,000 foot level temperatures. Watch what happens. We're in a mix over the next week or so here, staying chilly across the north initially. But watch this here. As that high starts to build in, we're then picking up some particularly cold air over western Russia. And as the high builds in, it then allows this transport of cold air underneath the high towards the UK and Ireland. Long way out, we're talking, the end of week 1 of February. But this is a very interesting solution. Again, let's not get carried away. Let's not get overexcited about it. But it's something worth watching anyway. And we'll leave it at that. I think I've covered enough. I've spoken now for over an hour. People are wanting to get about their business, so I do appreciate that. So I'll quickly look through the live chat, give a last shout out, and then I'll call it quits at that here. Back again as usual, 4 p.m. next Sunday with the live stream. Richard says 12 has ruined that now at the moment. So yeah, we're going to see back and forth in the models. It's the trend that's important. The trend is your friend. And when you start comparing with other ensembles, so the ensemble is the merging together of all the different runs into an ensemble mean. So it's always interesting to kind of look at that and then get a better handle. And also you look at what's going on with the MJO, and you say to yourself, does that make sense? So certain types of weather regimes, when you've got an MJO, such as what we've got at the moment, you have to then look at that and go, does that make sense? How many times does the models then show something, and then it just completely kicks it out of the way. We've seen it build in a Scandi high before a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't materialize, and I didn't buy into that, to be honest with you. And still, I'm even low in confidence that that is going to happen. But it's interesting nonetheless that you see a deceleration of the wins of the ECMWF model. You ask the question, why is that going to be the case? We see the GFS indicating that we've got warming taking place within the stratosphere. Again, what's the cause of that? Possibly a block developing over Northern Europe, affecting that, causing that friction and warming to take place here. So there's so many different questions to ask, and then we'll wait and see what the modelling suggests here. We've got Suit also tuning in. A very good evening to you, Suit. We've got Chris A also in the live chat here. Joyce says another good live stream, Mark. Thank you very much. And for also tuning in. Am I missing anything else? We've got Chris A also tuning in. Large flakes of snow, though. Sorry, it was only a shower of snow, and it only laid on the grass for a wee while. But Campsie Hills have been covered for the last couple of days, which is no surprise. Even the hills, I noticed Farish, which is a moderate kind of hill to the back here in Everton. That's had a good covering of snow over the last couple of days. I don't think there's been any snow in the Black Isle. Maybe a wintry mix, perhaps, but nothing really to write home about. Certainly once you get south of Inverness, climb up Drumossie Bray, you've got more in the way of snow there, I think. So a massive thank you to everybody, Katrine, to the moderators of Lisa, Splint and Paul James. Thanks very much for your help and support as always. And everybody, Tommy OCL, also tuning in. Have I missed anybody else out? David and Joyce Vogan and Kirk and Tillich, thank you very much. Hazel, Katrine, Chris A. I'm probably repeating names here. I do apologise. We've got Hulman. I know that's not the right pronunciation of your name. I do apologise for that. But thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you're well. Have you seen the pictures of River in Pittsburgh frozen? I haven't, but I will have a look at that. No surprise, really. Great Lakes frozen, rivers frozen. When you've got a wake of polar air over the United States, that quite often is the case. So I think I've given everybody a mention as best I can. Craigie Boy also. Hey Mark, how's things? Good stream as always. Big shout out to my daughter Peyton. Very good evening to Peyton. And hope everybody is well in the Craigie Boy household. Richard Shaw as well, thank you very much. So yeah, we'll call it quits at that. I hope you've enjoyed today's stream. There's been things that I've not showed that I wanted to show, but as usual, time really just rattles on, and you end up running out of time. You could end up speaking for a couple of hours, trying to fill everybody in with all the different things going on around the world. Really a focus on Europe as well as North America. There's obviously things going on around the planet as well, and I'll try and kind of touch on that in the upcoming week. Back again 4 p.m. with the live stream next Sunday, and I hope everybody has a safe upcoming work week. Stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you tomorrow at around 5:30 p.m. with the European Outlook. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye bye.